We have Voyage of the Dawn Treader this time, which had 16 chapters. The picture in the bedroom. On board the Dawn Treader, the Lone Islands, what Caspian did there. The storm and what came of it, the adventures of Eustace, how the adventure ended, 2 narrow escapes, the island of the voices, the magician's book, the duffel puds made happy, the dark island, the 3 sleepers, the beginning of the end of the world, the wonders of the last sea, and the very end of the world. Now, movie-wise versus the book, this one had a decent more differences. And I'll cross that bridge when I get there. So, obviously, this is what the Dawn Treader looks like. And this is one of the first ones that came with a map. I think Caspian came with a map. Honestly, quite a few of them did. I don't know why I said this was the first one. But, this book has seen better days. It's fine. Peter and Susan are referenced, but they aren't seen. So the rest of the main cast in this one is obviously Eustace. That's their cousin. You have Edmund and Lucy, Aslan, Caspian, who is now the king, Reepicheep, and the crew, for lack of better words. I did struggle with the crew guy's name. Oh my goodness, what are they doing now? I called him Dorian because that's what my brain went to, so I apologize for that one. Starting off, we find out that it's been a little while, it's summer, and while Susan and Peter are off doing their own thing, Lucy and Edmund are stuck now with their cousin Eustace. Fun times, he's a bore. He's even worse than Susan, and Tiffany calls Susan a square. So, you know, they're just hanging out, they're doing their own thing. He's sharing a room with Edmund, Edmund's just technically sharing up with him. Lucy has her own room, and they notice that there's a very Narnia-looking boat on this painting. But even while they talk about Narnia, the cousin doesn't believe in Narnia. They think that it's just fairy tale. Cool, cool, cool. Until, you know, the water starts spilling out, like in the movie, and woo, we're in Narnia. I hope y'all can swim. Lucy wasn't the best swimmer before, but thank God she took swimming lessons. Otherwise, it would have been a very short book. They get picked up, and we find out that Caspian is on the quest to find out what's at the end of the world. He needs to find these lords, and, you know, all good things, all fun things, all great things, you know? Adventure. Going in, I knew it was going to be a movie about being on a boat, and a book about being on a boat. Thank God I had the movie, otherwise I might have struggled, honestly, because again, if you watched my whole thing about the horse and his boy, whenever they went through the desert, that was one of my hardest times. So knowing that they were going to spend a good chunk on the water, and I know nothing about boats, it was challenging at best. So he finds out that, oh, okay, there's a talking animal here, because, you know, Reepicheep, he talks, and he doesn't really like Eustace at first. Fair play. I don't think anyone really did, but all is well, and they go on this journey. Hey, yeah, my cousin is a king and my other cousin's a queen. This is weird. These people are weird. He just wants to go back home. It doesn't work out that way, obviously. The first rail stop is the Lone Islands, where, well, a lot of people outside of Caspian, the Pevensies and Eustace, get kidnapped by the slavers, which was one of my least favorite parts of the movie. But technically Caspian also gets captured. Everybody gets captured, but Caspian gets sold off first. And then they keep moving on until they get to where they can actually, you know, meet the other people in the market. But he was sold off to this lord, and turns out that this lord was one of the missing ones who decided he liked where he was just gonna stay and, you know, do his own thing. He got married. Caspian is released, and they come up with a plan to free the others. If you remember the movie, after they're all freed and all of this is well and done, we find out that there's like this green smoke and people are being sacrificed to the green smoke, and that didn't happen in the books at all. So gathering the father and the daughter to try and find the wife, that's not a thing. They eventually get free from the slavers and, you know, keep going on. I was confused because I was expecting that B-plot, but that B-plot wasn't a thing. They keep on going, and I believe the next part, I should have made a note for this one because this one is one of the ones that had one of the most different ones. Yes. They have a storm, which, if I believe, let me get to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is the one with the storm. The whole issue with the, like, sea serpent thing happened before the final battle. So, but that's not what happened just yet. There's just that storm. And they get to an island where this is when Eustace becomes the dragon. Which in the movie he's a dragon for a good chunk of the time. But he becomes the dragon, and that's when he meets Aslan, and he gets turned back eventually, and he gets his character growth kind of fast in the book, whereas in the movie he's the dragon for a very long time, and he helps them through the storm, he helps them get to the Dark Island, and then he eventually runs the sword back after he gets turned into a human once again. But he's a dragon for a relatively short time in the books, and he learns his lesson really quick. So that was a change. I'm not entirely sure if I like that change, but plot's got a plot, movie's got a movie, and he's not a dragon for very long. He becomes friends with Reepicheep, and, you know, they go from there. So the Dragon Island and the Gold Island, which are pretty much combined in this movie world, is not combined in this book world, because eventually they do get to the Gold Island where they find another lord, and oh yeah, he's in the Gold Water. I wanted to throw hands with Edmund and Caspian in both versions whenever they fight over this Gold Lake. Like, I know greed and all of that. At that point in the movie it's described because of that green smoke and greed, and you have Lucy being the only sensible person. If she would have slapped them, I would have been okay with that. But no, that's not what happened. So, you know, if you would have be. They eventually get off and they get out of the island. That's now Forbidden Island. Don't go there. Cool, 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 cool. Sea Serpent, I believe, is up next. It goes around the boat and they have to kill it. It's not made up because the Dark Island is like, hey, we're gonna mess with your brain. He's kind of stupid, the Sea Serpent, so whenever he destroys a little bit of the boat, you know what, whatever. Is the Sea Serpent next? I'm sorry, I should have made notes. I'm so sorry. But yeah, that would have been a narrow escape. So I'm gonna say that that's chapter 8. Then they get to the Duffel Island, which, if you remember that, that's where the magician had the invisible mansion, and they're invisible, and everything is invisible, and they're these weird, like, weird creatures. Like, almost like a mermaid on land, but without a tail, it's just one big foot that's together. And they kidnap Lucy so they can read the magician's book, and they can become peoples again. But Lucy's terrified of the mansion in this book Because, you know, they kind of say, hey, yeah, he's a real mean guy. He's gonna do stuff if you get caught. He's rather chill. He got a little bit mad at him, but, like, you know, it could have been worse than turning invisible and being with weird little hoppy dudes. But they have little girls, and they needed a little girl to go up and read it because, you know, loopholes. They didn't want to send any of their kids to do it, so they sent Lucy. So eventually they get through that, and they go to Ramadou's Island, and they meet his daughter, who doesn't have a name in the books, but I believe it's Lily, Lilindil, or something like that. We're just gonna call her Lily for safe purposes. Caspian falls in love, and the crew wants food, and they gotta go to the island because, you know, why wouldn't they? They find that the other three lords are sleeping at the end of the table, but Aslan's table is renewed every day, and if they don't eat it, birds will. Cool. Cool reference, because, you know, if you don't praise and worship, then nature will, and so in this case, spiritually fed versus actually being fed. Cool side things. Only one of the crew members decides to stay back, and then everybody else goes off to the island. They find the last lord, bring him back, he goes to sleep, and then they go off to figure out what's at the very end of the world. Honestly, that might be when the dude stays behind, because he eventually leaves. He goes and hangs out in Colombian, is that how you pronounce it? He hangs out in the place from The Horse and His Boy. I don't know why he would choose to go there, but he did. So he ends up doing that. Everybody else goes off to see the end of the world. And that's when we find out that Caspian kind of has a hissy fit. And he doesn't actually go with them to where the water meets the sky. And that's the beginning of Aslan's country. Aslan is not in his true lion form when he greets Edmund, Lucy, and Eustace. He's a lamb, which is very important again because, you know, lion and lamb tied together. Obviously, Lucy sees that it's him, and he's back to his lion form. Reepicheep goes off. He's probably already gone at this point, if I remember correctly. Oh no, he would have just left. He goes, and it's a sad, touching moment because he basically dies. And he goes to join Aslan's country. And that's the last time that we see him for a good while. Spoiler, I guess, if you haven't read The Last Battle, we do see him again. It's kind of touching, but in the same breath, Lucy and Edmund also know that it's their time. They're not going to be able to come back like Susan and Peter. Lucy had to deal with, especially when she was in the mansion, about, you know, do I use this magic? Do I erase myself? In the movie, whenever she does that, she basically becomes Susan, and Lucy's gone. They're in a different place. They never went to Narnia in the movie version. She would have had to erase herself to become this most beautiful version of her. In the book, she spies on a friend who's talking bad about her at that moment. She does deal with the should I change myself into the most beautiful person, but her lesson is learned kind of quickly because Aslan's there. He's been there a good while. She does use the spell to reverse the invisibility and all that fun stuff, but you know. But now their time in Narnia has come to an end, and they need to go like Peter and Susan did. But Eustace can still come back because Narnia still needs him. So it's kind of bittersweet. Out of this one, I do know that there was a lot of changes, but it's still a good read. The movie is still good, though slightly different times, you know. This one is just a solid 4, not 4.5. Would I reread? Probably. I think I would take my time. I kind of sped through like Caspian. Caspian was a quick read. This was a quick read. But I think I would take my time, you know? And yeah, critiques maybe keeping Lucy turning into Susan, because that was an interesting part of the movie. Them fighting the weird green ghosty wispy things, not necessarily keep cool, but you know, movie, that makes them different, that makes them cool. Book didn't need it, movie did. Cool, I'm not gonna argue, you know? But yeah, that's my review.